to the Wrestling Roundtable. It's for the week of January 27th, and by the time this airs or is uploaded on YouTube, this guy, Brock Lesnar, is going to be having his fight this coming Saturday, February 2nd. Can't wait for that. And it might as well be like the MMA Roundtable almost on this episode, so if you can stick with us, wrestling fans, this does relate to you. Let's introduce ourselves. It's Chris Harris joining me on my left, which is your right, and on my right, your left. It's Lawrence Haber and Rodney Lacan. We've been fans of all these years combined. I'm your host, Eric Santamaria, and something's really happened in the past couple years. The explosion of MMA, specifically UFC in North America, to the American audience. And I think the person on our panel I'm going to throw this to first is you, Rodney, because you have the most legit background of anybody. You're the 2000 Freehold Regional District Champion in high school amateur wrestling. You were training in Ronin Athletics in New York, and most importantly, the 2007 light heavyweight gold medalist. So you know your mixed martial arts. And one thing that I find is really interesting is how do you compare mixed martial arts to wrestling? A lot of people are saying that you can't. It's two totally different things. But yet, the whole marketing of UFC is addressing just that, as real as it gets. We all know what they're referring to. So how do you think wrestling and MMA compare to each other?
I think they compare a lot with its promotion and marketing, really. They promote their cards almost the same way. I think UFC does what I think UFC excels at, that I think wrestling can learn from, is building new stars. They promote undercard as much as they build their main events, and they're constantly having different main events. Like, you'll never see nowadays the Intercontinental title match the main event. You'll never see someone like George St. Pierre, who's now the welterweight champion, and get a big like right now he gets maybe slightly lesser pops than Chuck Liddell, which is like the main star. But like, say, compared to wrestling, you won't have like, say, say if Maven was an Intercontinental champion, get a bigger pop as Rock, if he was a champion at the time.
You can smile, Lawrence, but look at the parallels here. You got a reality series on both companies' plate here. You have Tough Enough and Ultimate Fighter. Ultimate Fighter, their guys go in and have been very successful.
Yeah.
Some of them have won belts, like Matt Serra. Whereas Tough Enough, WWF chose not to capitalize on all this new exposure that they got from MTV with Maven and with guys like, well, not MTV, but later with Pewter.
Yeah.
You remember the incident with Pewter?
Because you can't script a politic reality. If some guy's a badass, it doesn't matter about what anybody thinks about what his haircut is or how tall he is. If he goes in and he beats people, it's a sport.
But we're talking about promotion.
It's a sport, yeah, but it's promoting. You know what? UFC promotes their biggest talent, their most talented guys, which WWF doesn't do.
Well, Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner have personality also. People like them.
But you know what? They put in a hell of a match.
Yeah,
Forrest, has great personality and puts on matches and upset, Shogun Rua, which is like one of the top guys in Pride. Right. So I think that's why people get behind UFC. The most talented guys prevail.
What do you make of this, Chris? Because when you have someone who can make you money, we've seen so many times WWF has brought in someone and even paid them a lot of money, like Goldberg, let alone someone like Maven or Daniel Pewter out of Tough Enough, and they've totally cut the legs out from underneath them. Is that very smart business-wise? UFC would never do that, would they?
It comes down to promotion, like Rod said, but I don't agree that they build everybody up. That's really what it comes to.
UFC doesn't?
They don't do a great job, like you said, of building new talent. Really, when you look at that African guy that came in on the last pay-per-view, 79,
But what about guys like Rashad Evans and Quentin Jackson?
They were able to build those, but they don't build everybody. Houston Alexander, he was another one, wasn't built properly.
He was built properly. They put him in a match,
they should have put him in a better match.
Same thing will happen to Brock too. If Brock goes in there and bombs, okay, bad idea.
Yeah, but it's smart to book Brock as a top star because he has potential, I think, more than any other wrestler.
Well, but if he goes in and he gets killed, he can't.
It's going to be
over.
A disaster. He's not going to be booked again.
Well, it's not going to be a disaster. They're just
so.
going to say, okay, we made our money, now we'll move on. Just like boxing used to do when boxing booked itself well. It does book itself in a lot of ways. They used to have fights, we're going to put Ali's out we're going to bring back, and that's a logical
Well, that's what UFC's doing if Brock loses. Brock chose to fight Frank Mir, former champion, who's a submission specialist.
They're not going to promote him if he gets killed by me. They're not going to promote him.
He'll still be,
No,
on
he
a
won't
few.
draw because the
I
Wrestling
think
fans
so.
don't care anymore. They'll be like, he lost and he got killed.
Well, we've been talking about promotion, and Dana
I love
White
that.
has said before
He gets
that
killed.
he's taken the WWF's pay-per-view model as a basis for what they do. But the interesting thing is the numbers are so unbalanced. I have the numbers right here. The percentage of their audience for Ultimate Fighter or Fight Night, whatever they might do, significantly buys more of their pay-per-views than any wrestling audience. Last year, TNA had 3 to 6% of their audience buy pay-per-views, where UFC had 30 to 40%. And if you compare buy rates, the average for WWF last in 2006, the domestic buy was 208,000 buys, and that's less than half of what UFC did that year.
I think it's easy to explain though. I mean, when you're a legit sport like UFC and you have a pay-per-view every month or whatever, every show is a big show because every match is a premier match.
It's also-
Whereas on WWF, it's like, even though it's scripted, they can get that effect. You can't have Orton, because wrestling has such a formula and people are aware of it. They know that they don't
They
have to
could
buy
break
No
it.
Mercy
They
and
could break it.
Unforgiven. They can just watch WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and Survivor Series. You know, whereas UFC's like, the big rematch between so-and-so and this guy.
And how long do you
supposed
have to wait though for that rematch? It's going to help bring up buy rates. You have to wait so long.
Yes,
but they
they
can
don't
also-
do
But
three
you
the
never
same.
see the same pay-per-view 2 months
Whereas
in a row.
WWF has this need to, because of the political structure of the way they book things and their formula, to take the WrestleMania main event and do it 3 or 4 times in a row. And not only does it hurt that match, it hurts the drawing power of both those guys. Look what happened to Batista.
And not only is UFC's buy rates higher, they're also going on Saturday nights. WWE, I don't think would ever dare to go on pay-per-view on a Saturday
They
night.
used to.
They used to, but
Not
their
the modern
fans-
era.
That might
Not
be where
years because their fans are out.
that might be where the comparison
out,
ends, I
you know?
think, because it's a different pay-per-view market. It's like boxing.
It's
You know,
more
like-
along the lines of boxing. It is, and you can gamble on it. It's
You
a
can't
big-
sell a UFC show on like Jericho's coming back, Brock's coming back,
Yeah.
he's going to be here. You can't sell.
Yeah,
You have
you
to
can.
match.
Yeah, you
have to
can.
match.
to
Yes,
build
you
it
can.
in
Yes,
life.
you can. Because they did it with Horace Gracie.
And
When he
Matt
fought
Hughes.
Matt Hughes. I mean,
No,
I
I'm
can't-
not saying like, I'm talking about he has to be in a match. WWF can sell pay-per-view on, the NWO's coming back even if they don't have a match. UFC needs a legitimate match. They can't be like, Brock's gonna be there.
He's
in the
gonna
crowd.
appear.
Yeah, they can't
They
sell
couldn't
that.
just have promos with a shadow and a
That's what I
guy
meant.
training and
Right,
find out
exactly.
Saturday night who the hell this guy is. It's not
Exactly.
gonna work on UFC. Their fans aren't gonna go.
You need
for
to
that.
fight. You need
If
to
they're
fight.
gonna just say, Brock Lesnar is gonna be here this night and he's gonna be in this cage.
I think they can learn a lot more from them.
Yeah, but I
People are
think they've
gonna
done that.
throw their money down as fast as they can to see.
They've done that with, I think they debuted with Mirko Crook and Rampage Jackson, 2 guys from Pride who came in and basically fought nobodies. But it was part of the market. It drew. Because
Well, they're fighting though.
they were fighting, obviously.
But if it's like,
obviously,
they could be like, next month they're gonna be here from the guys
Yeah,
from
but-
Pride, They
But
gotta fight people.
on WWF pay-per-views, like what pay-per-view recently has a guy just come back to show up?
If Jericho
and
came
wrestle?
back to take a shit, they would have got a buy rate for it because people were excited
I
to
don't
see
think
it.
so.
And that's where they're
And
stupid
that's
because
more-
they bring them back on Raw.
That's
I
more of a Raw thing.
understand, and
That's more of a Raw thing.
They
UFC
should be.
knows
that's
it's about
more
the
of a raw-
If they
pay-per-views.
really wanted to get pay-per-view buy rates up every once in a while,
Do the things, big
have a
things
guy
on pay-per-view.
return. If the rumors are true about Big Show coming back, have
Do
him
it on
enter in the Rumble,
pay-per-view.
and all of a sudden
Yeah,
it
that's
brings
what they
the
do.
aura and the mystery back up. Anything can happen on this show. Pay us money,
Hey,
please.
in the
We're not going to
early
give this to you
90s,
for free.
They would bring people back at the Raw, but they tell
Big
you
Show,
they wouldn't bring
his
them
first
back.
debut at was it St. Valentine's Day Massacre? How cool was that when he came up through the ring? And then you had to pay to see that, and just that if you gave it away, it's not going to be the same.
Well, you don't have to pay to see our show, so hopefully you stick around. We'll be talking more about the comparisons between MMA and wrestling when we come back. Welcome back to the Combat Sports Roundtable, because during the break we were talking about boxing. And obviously, when you look at wrestling, MMA, boxing, they're all somewhat related. Whenever you look up lists of videotapes in the library, whatever, it's always wrestling and boxing. And now maybe the new thing will be wrestling, boxing, MMA. So do you think there is some sort of crossover audience here, or is it 3 separate things?
I think it's two separate.
I think there's a big difference between boxing and wrestling, but I think MMA might be the centerpiece
Yeah,
between
I
them.
don't think so. I think MMA and boxing are here. Wrestling is still a TV show.
Well, not to bring statistics back into it, but the 1 or 2 boxing matches a year blow all the buy rates away for the other 2.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
boxing's been around for.
Yeah, boxing.
I mean, as a thing.
And they got all the major advertisers.
In terms of the media and the public eye, MMA seems to be going through the same, let's say, growing pains that wrestling's never broke out of. MMA is classified as human cockfighting and all these stereotypes. Boxers will talk about how much better boxing is, not realizing boxing's just an element of MMA. I have a quote here from Muscle and Fitness. They say, MMA, a feverish combination of fighting styles in which almost anything goes, no, looks like pro wrestling without the theatrics. Obviously, this person's never seen Akihiro Gono, Kazushi Sakuraba, and Quentin Rampage Jackson. There's plenty of elements that MMA has taken from other combat sports. But that's the perception of
Maybe
it.
the first couple UFCs.
First couple
like-
UFCs, yeah.
Because it
the
was
whole
like a
question-
Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Yeah.
There's a
It's
sumo and he's fighting a
right?
ninja.
Before that, the whole question of MMA was different. You know, Ultimate Fighting, their whole question was, can a kickboxer beat a wrestler? Can a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist beat a
Brazilian beat everybody.
street fighter in a real fight? There were no weight classes, there were no time limits,
And I think that's
and
pure-
there were no gloves.
more pure.
And then once Dana White and the Zuffa brothers came in the store.
You got all the juiced up guys that look exactly the same.
And they,
And
no,
they
no,
fight
no.
all the
They,
same.
they banned headbutts, they added gloves, they added regulations. They wanted to make it a legit sport.
Exactly.
I think they've done
That originally, the Freak Show was
Yeah.
15 years ago, but it's still carrying around this stigma of human
I
cockfighting.
think people. There was a football commercial actually the other day that a guy was sitting at the bar and said, "Oh, people actually think that cage fighting would actually catch up to football because it's people see it, I guess, as fighting. It might be a little too much for them, so they didn't even want to like give it a chance. They want to say, "Oh, well, this is like wrestling. This is not a legitimate sport." But personally training, it's as much of a sport as anything else.
Well, of course, we know
Is that
that.
wrestling or MMA?
MMA.
And wrestling too, to an extent. There are
Wrestling
people
is
who
athletic.
train their
No,
wrestling.
people never
Of course.
understand that wrestling.
Well, you
is
have to
athletic.
train to be in Cirque du
People,
Soleil,
yeah.
and it's not a sport. You have to
People
train to be
think
an ice
that
skater.
you can wrestle for an hour and it's no problem.
But what do you think about? I don't know whether there is a big crossover or not. I think it's 2 very distinctive audiences, but they are related somehow.
They are related because on
Well,
the
I don't know for
website,
wrestling fans, but I don't think MMA fans give a shit about wrestling.
but they're
No,
promoting
maybe it's a
Brock
one-way street.
Yeah.
on the website for this upcoming card. They're promoting Brock as a former WWE champion.
yeah,
well,
because
obviously,
they need
because
to
you
give
wanna
something
tap
to
into
say.
that.
Yeah, but no, they could also just say
Fans.
he's a former pro wrestler.
Yeah.
They don't have to go so far
Well,
to
they
show
need-
footage
yeah,
of
but-
it.
but
Say
right.
former WWE champion
They
before
right,
2000.
yeah,
That's a double
They have to
champion.
have something to
That's
say from him, because
recognizable.
honestly, he was an NCAA champion. He doesn't have an MMA background to really speak of besides one match. So it's kind of hard to be like, this guy Brock, and if you watch Wrestling Notice, they have to say.
Oh
he was
no,
the-
they can do it.
I
They
think
can
it's
get around it if they
recognizable
want
to
to.
the WWE fans.
He wasn't in private.
And it's also going to recognize, it's going to be for all
Why
those
wouldn't they say
curious
if they didn't want a
people
wrestling audience?
of, well, we know what WWE is, but how can one of their guys do against one of our guys?
So it's a selling point.
That's the whole thing about it.
Mhm.
UFC, in a general sense, not
Yeah.
literal sense, in a general sense, UFC is what WWF would be if it was real. And that's the whole selling point of it. So obviously they're going to use Brock as, why not capitalize on his stardom? But don't you think WWE considers them competition? Why else would they have wanted to sign away Mike Goldberg for Raw like they
Yeah,
tried?
I think so.
ago?
That's
I
definitely
think
the
it
closest
does.
competition they have right now, I would say.
They're definitely not. They're not competing. If they think they're competition, there's no competition.
How about
Why
what
would
if they
they
put a
want-
fight night
It's not
on Raw?
Nitro,
What if they
you
put
know?
a fight night on a Monday night?
Fans will, the kids will watch Raw. None
I
of
don't
the little
think so.
kids.
I wouldn't
Little,
even
little
flip-
kids are gonna.
I would
fucking-
not even
The
flip
people
through
that
Raw.
watch you who fights.
I wouldn't
But a
even
little
flip
kid
through
who
Raw.
likes
No,
John
but
Cena
just
and
ask the
Carlito
fans.
is not gonna fucking watch Frank Mir.
I think Lawrence has a point because
They
if
wanna
you
do
the
this.
little kids.
If you
do
go
this.
to a UFC show, you're not going to see the same type of people
Not
you
at
do at
all.
a wrestling show.
I think
There's
they'll
not
beat
nearly
them
as
in
many
ratings.
ratings
I
as
think
the
they'll
UFC show.
beat them in ratings.
Oh, they do.
And so, well, that's.
But that doesn't mean they're competing with each other. Fucking Monday Night Football has better ratings, but they don't compete with
But
Raw.
let's-
Raw's not gonna
Well,
steal
I'm
audience
not
ever,
saying
no matter what happens.
if Fight Night went on a Monday night just to compete with Raw, you don't think WWF would see that as competition?
They would
Yeah, they
step
would see
up.
it, but it wouldn't
They would.
be.
They would step up for the
Yeah,
night.
but
They
it wouldn't
would.
matter to their fans.
See,
Very few. Raw would not lose audience to UFC ever.
Well, let's
and
put-
UFC would not lose audience to Raw.
Let's ask
No
this
way.
question. Let's go back to early '05 when Tough Enough had their finals on SmackDown, and Pewter got in the ring with Angle and nearly broke his arm off.
Yeah.
When he got in the ring, even
People
though he
chanting.
wasn't a UFC fighter, the crowd in unison, loud,
Because they knew he was
chanted
real.
UFC.
Because they-
Yeah.
You don't think that put
It's
some
smart mark
worry into them?
bullshit. Smart mark bullshit.
By that point, I would say no.
No?
I think they were
No,
more worried
because
that,
you know they weren't. Right, I think at that point, the first Ultimate Fighter was still showing, and I think they weren't at the height that they are now. So I don't think that they were.
Well,
I don't think they were as worried as they would be now.
If UFC isn't competition to WWE, how come we would never, in this day and age, see something like when they brought in
that's what I'm
Shamrock
saying.
and
They perceive it as competition, but it's not really competition to them. They're afraid of it. They don't really. I don't think they have a reason to because I think it's a different animal, and it's not. They're not going to take business from the WWE.
Yeah, it's not like
Everyone knows wrestling is fake and UFC is real. So what is it?
But yeah, in
What are they
Morris's
exposing?
defense, I don't think that Dana White's gonna go out and try to get Bobby Lashley and John Cena. Try
Because
to take
he
their
knows
talent.
it's not competition.
I think but they're not good talent.
But you don't think if UFC's ratings started going up, and you might get those curious fans up, well, WWE's real. Why am I going to watch that when I can watch the real?
Yeah, but it's a different form of
How come it
entertainment.
hasn't happened
It's also a
in
different
100
form of
years?
entertainment.
Nobody
Because-
said Bruno Sammartino's 5 foot tall. I'm gonna go watch the NFL instead. Whether it's fighting or boxing or baseball, wrestling is a totally different. That's what makes wrestling great. It's so unique. It's scripted. Unless UFC had storylines,
It's a
like
theatrical
Raw had,
sport.
people are not gonna get into it.
Okay, then
the wrestling fans are gonna get
How
into it.
come when we get someone who has a legit background like an Angle or a Brock, and they start incorporating elements like that, we start going crazy? We love it. So do you think that?
Because it makes
I
the
think-
cartoon look more realistic to us.
Okay,
It's
but
like we see a good movie and it's not a cartoon. It doesn't come.
well,
off
what
as-
do you think WWF should do? Because Shane McMahon had the idea floating around of starting an MMA promotion, which would be like the XFC, I guess.
I have a strong opinion on this thing.
Well, then go ahead.
Okay, here's how I feel. I don't want them to incorporate. When you watch a fight, you know it's real. So when the guys are grappling and stuff, you're excited. In wrestling, when you know it's fake, I don't want to see guys fucking rolling around. I want to see people flying in the air, backdrops, Irish whips, because it's fake. There's no physics
So
in
you
wrestling.
like Lucha Libre then?
No, I'm not talking about lucha libre. I'm talking about
what's-
basic spots.
I-
You never
I-
see an Irish whip in UFC. I want to have Irish whips in wrestling.
Of course,
it's the most
but you know
ridiculous
what?
move in the world. It's
It's
not real,
great.
but it's
Also,
fun.
it's great to see matches with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit when they start out with that amateur style.
But you want to
That's
see
good.
you want to see pro wrestling.
We want to see
also.
pro wrestling, but it's also good to incorporate that.
About someone
Rick
with
Flair
Samuelson
moves.
bringing his elbows.
Oh, because that's an exciting thing, Not that I'm an advocate of strong style. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. But as far as like get rid of the headlocks and bring in some more of the UFC holds. Get rid of the cliched arm bars and arm drags and bring some of the UFC holds. But I'm talking about like the action moments in wrestling that we know are fake are fun. I want those things.
Okay, but where do you draw the line? Should wrestling incorporate, like you said, more elements of a shoot style sort of thing in their minor parts of the match? Obviously, you want like overhead German suplexes and stuff
You
like
want
that.
the
all fun
exciting
stuff.
ending,
But
you
where
know.
does it stop? Like, do they go so?
I
If
think
they're
it's
so
up to the
different, they go in the
moments.
opposite direction and become ridiculous, or do they incorporate more realistic things?
Like they've done with every other style. Now there's more lucha. There's more high spots than there used to be top rope stuff from lucha. They didn't become a lucha show, and have they're like, we can't make Austin a champion because he's got bad knees and he can't do acai moonsaults and stuff.
Well, what I think they should incorporate, like I said before, with the promotion. Just imagine, like I said to you one time, imagine if
Sprinkle.
Goldberg and Brock was built the same way that Vanderlei Silva and Chuck Liddell were. Two monsters, two different
That's what
times. Boom. I think promotion is what wrestling should learn from UFC.
Well, you mentioned monsters, and I'd like to talk more about Brock Lesnar, but we're out of time. So when we end the MMA topic, I just want to wish Brock Lesnar good luck. I'm very much looking forward to his fight. I hope he does really well, and I hope you stick around too. We're going to be talking about our favorite finishers and submissions when we come back from our break. Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. During the break, we mentioned Taz and his judo background, which brings to mind the Kata Hajime.
Yeah,
That leads
Taz
us into our topic about finishers, our favorite finishers and submissions, which I guess somewhat ties into our MMA topic. So
Right,
let's
right.
go around. What were some of your favorite
The
finishers?
sharpshooter.
Yeah.
The sharpshooter. Because, not just because Bret Hart's one of my all-time favorite, because I've very rarely have you seen anyone break out. I think Austin was the first one I've seen break out of Bret Hart's sharpshooter because it looked like it hurt
It
a
did,
lot,
it looked
you
like
know,
really
and
hurt.
because
You
he
can
was
ask
a
Lawler
small
at
guy.
SummerSlam 93
Yeah,
if it hurt.
because he was like, I guess compared to other traditional wrestlers, a smaller guy. So the only way for him to beat you is to put you in this hold where you're in so much pain you have no other choice to give up. I think it's perfect for him.
You know what was unique about the sharpshooter, I think? If you're going through the Bret Hart book like you are now, you start
Yeah.
remembering all the different ways in his big matches that he got into it.
Yes.
It was almost as diverse as the Diamond Cutter, the way he applied. You
Yeah,
know, it
when the
wasn't-
guys come with the top ropes, or the way he had it with Perfect when they're both laying down.
Mhm. Now, what do you think about The Rock doing the sharpshooter?
It was just sloppy, it was a mess, and
Throwback.
you know what? What are you gonna do?
What's
He's gonna
old
do it
is new.
anyway. You get hate it or love it. God's gonna
Ooh,
do
I think
it.
it worked for him though. What's old is new, you know, because it
Yeah, it never. It looked awful.
It had
It looked
innuendos,
awful.
yeah.
I don't remember anyone even submitting. Maybe one or two guys.
If that.
Yeah.
But what are your favorite finishes, aside from the
Definitely
sharpshooter?
sharpshooter. I loved Brock Lesnar's F5.
Really?
That was
Yeah.
one of the best power
I think
moves.
so too.
Sid's power bomb. I liked
Sid's.
a lot.
Another thing with Brock's at 5, that was another one who got it from all different angles,
Mhm.
unexpectedly.
Yeah, he
From
would
the
just
time
grab
he
a
would,
guy.
he'd roll back with the guy, throw him up on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, to me, the F5 was taking an element of what Hogan used to do, where it's body slamming the fat guy. You know, that was Hogan's MO for like 10 years. He body slams the fat guy. But then Brock comes along, and not only does he pick like Big Show, Mark Henry, Rikishi up like they're nothing practically, with broken ribs at Survivor Series 02, he's
Yeah.
throwing them around.
That's why
Yeah.
the jackhammer, man, and the spirit preceding it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you know, the,
Oh
kick,
my God.
the kick to the stomach stunner, the kick
Oh.
to the stomach pedigree. This guy's like, fuck you, bam! And he
That's
picks you
so
up
big.
over his head to do a suplex. And he does a move that I'd never seen before, maybe in Japan, where he out of the fucking suplex, like poetry, in perfect, you know, centripetal force, fucking body.
And
That
even
was
back
like-
then, when
and
you
he's
see
picking up
spears.
300, 400
And those spears would come out of nowhere. It would jump me up to my feet.
Everybody's
This was-
doing spears now, but
We're
he
talking
did
about
the
legit
best.
stuff. That looked like he was a freight train. I was running through people.
Well, that was perfect for him, obviously playing up in his football background.
Yes.
But he did it first, and he did it better than
Yeah.
anybody since then. You look at someone like Edge.
That's my
What's-
favorite finisher.
that's my least favorite
It's not a
finisher, too.
finisher. Just-
How can you take a spear seriously from a guy who looks like he's 150 pounds?
The worst thing I saw was at Armageddon, three-way, Undertaker, Batista, Edge. Edge spears the two of those guys. Like, 7 foot tall, 300-pound guys? That's a near fall? Are you kidding?
The thing with Edge is to me, it's just not believable. You know, Goldberg
really
was this gigantic guy. It looked like a train hitting this
He
guy.
was doing
and it still
backflips.
wasn't done. The match wasn't done. There was another
And then he was
big
gonna
follow
pick the dead carcass up.
And then
And
Carl
then slam it down.
It was
and
so
then you
real
expect
to
him
me.
to
I mean,
believe
it was,
that
you
Edge
know.
can just go like that into the guy and pin him. Even Batista, I don't think really uses it as a full-blown finisher.
Yeah.
But
Batista's
Batista's
fitting
figure at least to be a little
perfectly. It
more
fit that guy
believable.
perfectly.
But Edge's is not.
And you know what I liked about the Spirit, the fans? You would see them looking, they'd see the Spirit coming, like, yeah, their heads would go down, and then when he picked them up, you'd see everybody's heads go up.
And
It was like a video
The
game.
one when they won the U.S. title with Raven, when Raven
Oh,
just
God.
turned around with that stop sign and bam.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference. When Goldberg was doing his spear before everyone and their fucking mother started doing it, like Shane McMahon,
Oh,
Goldberg
God.
is this huge jacked up guy with fire. He'd spear you and yeah! And then he picks him up, Edge, you know, spears.
Yeah, but Goldberg was totally fake and contrived, and he sucked. And
Yeah, but Edge is
I
a
hate
great worker.
fucking- Yeah.
How about Ahmed Johnson's Pro River Plunge? I think that's one of my favorites.
It was alright.
I hate sit out power
It was a
bomb.
good
I
move
liked
for
it.
its
All right,
Sit out
I'd
power
like to
bomb.
talk about
For its time, it was a good
They
move.
always
I liked
do
it. It was different. For the
Sit out
time,
power
obviously.
bomb.
I don't mind sit out power
That's what I'm
bombs,
saying.
but I do mind when goofballs like Batista do it and don't pin the guy.
Because the shoulders are down.
The whole
yeah.
point of a sit-out powerbomb is to cover the shoulders with your legs. Meanwhile, this dumbass powerbombs the guy, rolls around, and then goes
Whereas,
to
like, obviously there's a logic.
He lands in a pinning
Goldberg,
position.
Goldberg runs at this guy with all of his might, and then the guy's dead, and he has to pick him up and kill him more, which is kind of redundant, but it's different because it's a spectacle.
Well, it's a
Whereas,
setup.
like, a sit-out powerbomb is so goofy. You just
Well,
do it, bam, 1, 2, 3.
the spear's a setup move.
Yeah, I mean, it does, but then, like, of course, WF sees it, and they're like, oh, that's going to be his finisher now. That's going to be
that was
everyone's
awful.
finisher.
Yeah,
That's not, I mean,
bad.
what made it work was, like I said, it was unique because it was a double thing. It was like, bam, and then dead. And
Well, it's like
it was like a
leg
fatality.
drop. You know, he set him up and then finished him off.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much dead after the first move, but it's just.
It's
icing on the
WWE.
cake.
If
On his
Hogan-
elbow.
if
It
Hogan-
was just, it was a great set of moves.
If Hogan was never in WF and they signed it now, his finisher would be the big boot probably, because they love to make it their own. Let's change the music, we'll change the pyro's going to be this way instead of this way. Fucking
Well,
hate everything.
What do you think makes a good finisher? Like, we're talking about these different sort of moves,
Each
but
set.
each one of them must have something in it that works. What works for a finisher?
I think something that could convince the fans that
Knocking
nuts them down for the 3 count.
Knocking someone
Or
out,
can make
beating
them work
somebody
and really.
tap. It just maybe sometimes it just has to
A
be
leg
flashy.
drop?
It
It,
just
it
has to
also
be-
has to do with how well the wrestler can sell.
It's the, exactly,
Yeah.
it's
How
does the
well it
guy
sells.
make it look like it's something he knows is going to beat the guy.
Well, sure.
Macho Man's
Yeah.
elbow drop. How many times do you
Because
see
how many
everybody
cool
do it now?
finishers have we seen
Yeah,
for
but
guys
not
like
like
Indies
Macho
like Ring of
Man.
Honor or something, where these guys have these really innovative, crazy moves, but they do moves like that the whole match, and they don't make it like, yeah, that's my finisher, motherfucker, you're dead now, you know.
Like, to
you
me-
gotta sell it, man.
To me, the Swanton Bomb doesn't look like it would be a believable knockout. But, it's exciting for the fans when he goes up there.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, I think they just buy.
Hell, Ultra Warrior did a basic little splash.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he was like, you see his fucking veins popping out. He's like running around like he's,
Well, when
exploding.
he's doing that and beating everyone with it for a couple of years,
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Hardy, he sucks.
Yeah.
But then this move that barely makes contact, people buy that as a finisher. But then, what's the opposite end? I think Jericho has had the
Oh.
biggest problem in the past, since he's debuted.
Can we get over the Jericho love, fans, internet fans,
Never.
all fans?
I think it's
please?
over.
no, it's over.
It's over.
It's
Who's talking
me.
about it anymore?
And the whole bunch, I mean, there were a lot of WWE fans, like 98, who saw this guy's funny, but Jesus Christ, like at this point, that train had left the station. This guy sucks ass.
Well,
he is not entertaining.
We're talking about finishers, though. When you talk about Jericho, I think that's been his biggest problem. You look at the line saw. You look at the what did he call that sleep full Nelson, whatever.
The education.
yeah.
The education.
And now the
Communication.
double knee.
The Jericho.
The double knee thing. None of these moves are that.
Is he still using that? He's not using the
I don't know.
Boston Crab.
But like
Well,
he's,
the Walls of Jericho.
well, the Walls of Jericho's the Lion Tamer is a
Whatever.
different horse of a different color because
Screw
in
that.
WCW it looked like
It looked painful.
Right,
When he had the guy, when he had the one knee in the back.
Yeah.
And,
It was.
Everyone's breaking necks in steroid land. You can't do that.
It
anymore.
was an elevated Boston Crab.
Yeah,
But then you
Boston
get these
Crab.
pussies like in WWF, and the only one who's going to take it, big surprise, is he we do not speak of.
That's why no one's allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's the reason why. If Jericho hadn't done it and bent him in half, he wouldn't have killed his family.
Speaking of that, what about the crossface?
You mean the Daniel Killer?
What about it?
It was a good finisher.
It was a great
Finish. It looked like it
It,
hurt.
it really did. I'm sure they did too.
I hated when he would get lazy with hooking the arm. Because you
Yeah.
know the whole point of hooking the arm with your leg is so he can't
So it can't
escape.
counter, yeah.
But then he would sometimes just like let it hang loose.
I never liked the sweet chin music.
I
I just think it's kind of like, why would you let everybody
No,
know?
it was better when it came out of nowhere. On some of those matches,
'Cause it-
like who was it with Vader? He had a SummerSlam
Like when the guy
96.
woozily gets up and
When
turns
Vader
around.
did like a moonsault and then he just caught him with it. That
Never
was
liked
cool.
it. I never-
But other than that, when he was warming up the band.
Shane Douglas is
Well,
belly
that's
to belly. It's a fucking belly to belly. And ECW was not good with like finishers.
No.
Like
Yeah,
the
everybody,
transmission?
everybody had it. I'm talking about like everybody with that
3D?
DDT, Tommy Dreamer has a DDT, and he's
Yeah.
doing DDT. People are like, that's his finisher, duh.
Everybody, Raven used
The
it.
snowplow. I mean, give me a fucking break.
Well, we are gonna have a break right now. We're gonna talk more about our favorite and least favorite finishers when we come back, so stick around. Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. We're talking about our favorite finishers, and hopefully submissions will come into play because we were talking about MMA before. And oftentimes when people are talking about incorporating elements of MMA, it's usually with submissions. And this past Monday, by the time they see it, it'll be 2 Mondays ago, Shawn Michaels all of a sudden came out with this weird figure 4 submission.
Yeah.
Do you think this is ridiculous or good?
Ridiculous.
It's kind of ridiculous. I don't see him going further with it at all. I think people are generally entertained with the sweet chin music. They want to, all the little girls want to clap with it and everything.
But isn't
And
it
it's a
the
straight-
And I just gotta say, Sweet
I don't
Music,
think-
he got it over, but I always thought it just looked lame.
I think people thought it was a figure four.
Because it
That's
gives that
what-
energy.
I think people thought it was a figure four.
Do you think it's ridiculous because he hasn't done a submission in what, 25 years?
Because it's like a
But-
video game now.
Right. Everyone needs a
A
submission.
fatality
finish.
and an animality and a bestiality. You know,
Well,
right?
now it's everyone needs a finish. It's like when Cena had the three-way out of nowhere in his first year as champion with Angle and Chris Masters, a submission match. It's like, now that's where I call it the Samoa Joe speed dial. It's like he needed a submission because these two guys have a submission hold, and all of a sudden the STFU is born, and it's since gone on to become a legit finish.
Well, it has, and
Do you think it's more realistic for a wrestler to have a variety of moves, like a submission, than it is for him to be kicking people with one foot in the face for 25 years?
Depends on the guy. Depends on what the guy's character is, you know.
Because
Bret Hart couldn't have stopped doing
You-
technical wrestling one day and started doing big boots and light drops.
Yeah, right. He fits the paradigm.
You look at a guy like Bryan Danielson, one of Michael's students, and this guy gets like a new submission to his repertoire every other month.
But that's a shtick. That's part of the gimmick.
Yeah.
Well, it works.
It does.
Every would work for everybody. Though.
Okay.
But it
But
also, it depends on the character, depends on the wrestler,
Let's-
depends on fans.
I think it also brings that element of, not that it's real, but it brings a little bit more to it of, oh my God, this guy is in pain. He would rather tap out than be knocked out. I think it gives you more. It elevates you a little
It
bit more.
depends on the submission.
Yeah, it depends. It varies from guy to guy, but it'll elevate a guy a little bit.
Like when
he has it.
When
taps out.
Bob Backlund started doing the chicken wing, I had it tried on to me. It fucking hurts.
Yeah,
right?
but when he got it over
hurts.
too, they
Yeah,
made it look like
yeah.
he could be a champion.
Well, when
they got it
he-
over the first time he did it.
But look at how Ken Shamrock's ankle lock compared to Angle's ankle lock. Maybe because Angle's a main eventer, but the Angle actually took something that he was doing to set up a feud with Shamrock, I guess.
Yes.
And actually made it his signature thing.
Yes,
That's
It's
crazy.
taking a new life with Kurt
Yeah, that's
Angle.
weird.
and
I mean,
the way he could get that out of nowhere, the reversal.
And plus, he's got that amateur background where he knows how to do takedowns and stuff and
You're
get that
right.
move on.
I think
Yeah.
it does depend on the person because when it comes to incorporating MMA submissions or elements, it's really hit or miss in wrestling. You either get a hit with a guy like Danielson or Angle, or you get ridiculous crap like Undertaker,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Achilles
right.
lock, and Matt Hardy and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean those come out of nowhere. They don't see Undertaker as a submission artist. Guys, it's just not.
Yeah, that,
believable.
he's in like leather pants and wearing boots and he's a
He's
wild
a triangle.
I mean, you see these guys.
You need to realize that aside from being the Reaper of Wayward Souls, he also goes to the Gracie School. So, what
Here's
are,
friends of my news.
what are some of your favorite finishers?
I always like the old school stuff, like Flair doing the figure four, not everybody else doing figure four. Not a fan of the pedigree. I think forget about my favorites, because it's really like the least favorites.
Okay.
Because there's so many bad ones,
Right.
you know? I love the Diamond Cutter. You say
Diamond Cutter
Diamond
was
Cutter was
great
great.
because
But-
it was so various.
So Rock
Yes.
Bottom only worked because Rock was doing it, and he's just always
What about when Yoko did it?
That was
He's
a
also
finish with the
600
finish.
pounds.
Do you think Booker T's worked when he did the
Of
book?
course not.
No.
It's like, anytime a guy lands on his
The
knees,
bookend, number one
anything.
bestseller.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of
That
here.
guy had way too many.
Well, that was also another part of them trying to make him.
I hate when
Yeah.
these indie wrestlers that are like 4 foot tall, like Petey Williams type people, come up with these ridiculous moves they can only do to guys that are their size or smaller, and it's their finisher.
Well, don't you think?
And they come up with these stupid names for them, and they don't never let them do it.
Well, a horrible trend with wrestling moves in general is these fucking sentences for names.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Power
You
bomb
read
works
Wayward Souls.
because there's a past tense for it. He was power bombed. He's going to power bomb him.
Contra code to me makes no sense.
How do you say that for whisper in the wind? What was he, whispered in the wind or whisper in the wind?
He was whispered in the wind.
But the thing about it is also, I was talking about the Diamond Cutter, there was a lot of variety. When you look at guys like Austin, Triple H, it's the same damn move every time. Kickstarter,
Setup,
Kick
same
Pedigree.
setup.
It was Impact.
There's no variety at all. And I mean, it was
And
built
when
up.
people
But you don't always
saw-
need variety. I mean, Hogan did big boot and a leg drop, and Bret Hart did.
But, I mean, if it's there, why not?
Well, yeah, that's a move. But see, the whole Diamond Cutter is no set. That's supposed to be a step, something out of nowhere. But then Jake
That's
would do
what
a
his
short arm
whole-
DDT and then lift the guy up and.
Yeah,
short arm
I mean, it
cross.
works. I mean, if there's a setup, people look for it, it's great.
Yeah.
But DDP's whole thing is like you never see it coming.
That's what made it great.
Yeah.
He was versatile.
It's kind of
Exactly.
like Orton, where he's stalking him. It's coming. When
But that works too.
It works
Or-
for him.
or in-
It works. It works for
Yeah, but
him.
that never works.
But he's doing that thing
Or
with
it's
this.
come-
I like that. That's
It's
cool.
never going to be as good as DDP's.
It's unique.
Oh,
you
of
know?
course.
Just how he can just.
Well, it's a
hit it
different
from
move. It's not. I mean, even though it's the same move, it's a different move. It's the RKO. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's a different
To
move.
a different generation.
Yeah, it's well, but
It is the same
we know
move.
it's the same move, but I mean, it's got a different meaning when he does it. It's got its own purpose. It's like the difference between the chart buster and the stunner. There's no difference there. We know he's ripping that move off.
It just doesn't matter when one guy does it.
Yeah, the statute
Sure,
of limitations
just
was
go
followed.
One of my favorite finishers.
Yes.
Power and Glory's finishing move.
This, the Powerplex, I think.
Is it the Powerplex? When when Hercules would do the
Oh,
superplex and
tag
Robo would do.
Tag finishers
That
is a
was
whole other.
doomsday device.
But I have to say, it was one of my favorite finishers. I remember seeing that as a kid and being like,
No more
fucking
fucking choke slams.
Well,
Upset.
especially not by guys who are like
Unders, yeah, exactly. But even with the big guys, I mean, when you
It's
do
a stereotype.
when you do a powerbomb and a tombstone and you finish with a choke slam, it's like insulting me.
Yeah, but he's also,
I want to see the tall guy do a powerbomb.
What about
Except for Johnny.
specific match finishes? Like, what were some of the favorite finishes you had over the years as
Like
a
another
wrestling
topic
fan?
almost.
Absolute best one, WrestleMania 13. But Hart versus Austin.
I don't know what's
Austin
like this.
would not submit.
Well, it's true.
And the blood
yeah,
just
totally.
dripping
Yeah.
down his face and the pain that he had in his face. And he wouldn't give it up. That's one of my favorite finishes.
Macho Man Warrior retirement match.
Mm.
I loved it.
Yeah.
What will it take to beat one of these guys to their fucking career ends? It's a cartoon finish, but it was fucking awesome.
Well,
Put his foot on and said,
destroyed
"It
him.
is over,
Warrior, yeah.
motherfucker."
He
You're out
kept
of here."
picking him up, bringing him back in, beating him up some more.
I have to make sure that the deed is done and you are out of my fucking life.
And then the opposite end was
Oh.
when Savage was hitting like 6 elbows in a row and it couldn't put him away.
Tully and McIntyre is the other smart mark choice, but come on, he's got a fucking bloody
Yeah.
spike in his eye.
Uh-huh.
Right, Jesus. That was scary.
I personally liked the Angles Michaels finish.
Where Michaels was in the grapevine ankle lock for a
Yeah,
minute and a half.
I like that. I like to know the way he caught the super kick and how they kind of started going both ways. But I eventually liked that he made Shawn Michaels really tap out in the middle of the ring.
Chris Benoit, WrestleMania 20.
No, they still love him on the internet because they're fucking stupid.
Well,
but
fuck him anyway.
that was a great
I don't
finish for the match before.
It was a really
Yeah.
good finish.
Eddie Guerrero, No Way Out 2004. That was
Oh,
They had
my
fucking
God.
overrun
That was
in. They were just close to
overrun.
ruining
And
that.
then,
It was a great moment with
But
a
then he
great
just,
finish.
it was a great finish, I thought.
Every
He took the
WWE
event.
finish for the last 10 fucking years. He does rock bottom, he did the stunner, he did the tombstone, come on! Everyone's finisher back and forth, chops, chops,
I
chops.
like how Trish went out because I know how much Eric does.
I'm not.
I thought-
that. I love how at
I'm
WrestleMania
not
14,
kidding.
it takes 3 tombstones to beat Kane, but at 20, he must suck now because it only takes 1.
But he didn't have the mask to protect him.
All right, we had a great talk about MMA and wrestling and finishers as well, but every show must come to a finish, so hopefully you join us next time. We'll be talking about how the big 3 of today compared to the big 3 of years past. And we'll also be talking about some of the most important and significant events in wrestling history. So hopefully you join us for the panel. Chris Harris, Lawrence Haber, Rodney LeConte, I'm Eric Santa Maria. Thanks for watching and tune in next time.